This commenter recommended Ontario Diamante. I can tell from watching his videos that he is a proponent of free grace theology. For a fuller explanation as far as why I disagree with him, you should check out my debate on YouTube with John Crawford. He's from a free grace theology background. It was over the topic of baptism. Gavin James, John Crawford debate on Standing for Truth YouTube. Apologies for anyone who thought Jim was my real name, but that's another thing. Now, I appreciate the quality of Ontario's videos. I appreciate in one video he actually showed the entirety of the argument that someone was making for justification by faith and works. Not works of the law, not works of righteousness, but the works that God prescribes. And I would disagree with a Catholic on what those works are and in what order they should be performed. So that's another thing. Entirely different topic for discussion. And I'm speaking as someone who used to believe things very similar to what Ontario was preaching. He's not dealing with the arguments or the context that the arguments are coming from. There are some verses that he uses to try to make his point, but again, I think Romans 1 through 11, for the most part, are dealing with works of the law, just because it doesn't say what kind of works Paul is talking about. The problem with free grace theology or similar ideas is that it's self-contradictory. It has absolutely nothing with what you do. All you have to do is be saved. I've received comments like that, and people don't realize what they're saying. I think I was talking with someone yesterday from free grace theology or had a similar view, and they were struggling with the same problem. They recognized that Jesus calls believing in him the work of God, but then they'll go and say, well, we're not saved by any kinds of works. Now, if you say we're not saved by works, but we're saved by believing, and Jesus calls believing a work of God, that means that believing is a work, but it's not the kind of work that is a work of the law. It is not a work of righteousness that we have done. It is just something we must do to be saved. But it's not by believing alone, not by repentance alone, not by confession alone, not by baptism alone. And the idea that just because Jesus' baptism was necessary to fulfill all righteousness does not mean that we are doing anything to fulfill righteousness when we are baptized for the remission of sins. That's a complete non sequitur, comparing the reasons that Jesus needed to be baptized to the reasons why we should be baptized. I'd love to be able to take his videos, break them down point by point, the assumptions he's making, the logical flaws he's committing. But I feel like I pretty much summarized it, and for further information, my debate, it's 2 or 3 hours long on YouTube, will cover the differences of views, and the discussion we had is fairly good. It wasn't a cross-examination of sorts, it was just a discussion back and forth. So if there's anything in particular that you have to offer that you want me to address or think that I'm being inconsistent, then please, by all means, leave a comment, and I'll go in that direction with that particular topic.